I just clicked submit all and finish, and you can see Moodle is asking me, you are about to close this attempt. And remember, in the actual exam, you have one attempt. If you close it, you don't have any more attempts. Once you close the attempt, you will no longer be able to change your answers. Yep.
If you click save without submitting, is it going to be like when we upload our homework, like it's going to show the Excel file?
It doesn't really matter for this question. I'll show you, because I have one question that has a notepad.
Yeah.
That question, number 3 will basically save the answer, when you click save without submitting. So whatever you have worked on up to that point will now be living on the server, and I will be able to at least grade up to that point. So for that question, you might want to click save without submitting a few times. Every time you type something that's significant, you just click hit that button, so you keep updating the Moodle server about your answer. For these questions, for an upload, you have to use the upload interface to upload the file anyway. Okay. Are there any questions at this point about the interface? No questions? Okay. So I will just go ahead and do the question the same way as you would in the lab. And once again, you can just click it and open Office or Excel immediately. Excel will be in read-only mode. Okay, the first thing I would do is to remind you guys to bring your own thumb drive. Okay, you can save it onto the hard drive of the machines at the lab, but there's one problem. When you reboot the machines, the entire content of C drive on those machines will be reverted back to the original state. Okay, if you save it on the D drive, yes, you can retrieve it even after you reset the machine. But I think it is better to save it on your own thumb drive, so that you have a copy of the file, at all times, even after the test, even after you walk out of the classroom. Just remember to unplug your thumb drive when you're done. So I would just, save the file and specify a place on your thumb drive and save it at least once. Okay, and I just use the same file name.
Save it. You have to save it.
You have to save it first, because otherwise it's read-only. If it is read-only, you cannot change it. So I'm going to save it to the folder for today's class, because I'm going to save the answer anyway. So here we have, oops, I just changed the name. This one's FX1. You don't have to change the file name. You don't have to change the file name to include your own name in it, because the upload interface makes sure that I know who turned in which file. So don't spend any time to update the file name, because I know who is turning in that file anyway. Okay, so at this point, I have a file that I'm ready to change. So I will just work on it. So let's go ahead and just work on this file. So I will be basically combining the discussion of the answer and also the interface of Moodle at the same time. If I can't finish it today, we'll continue with this on Wednesday. Okay, so column A, same usual stuff, comments, and then line number here. There's nothing to say about precondition because we don't have any global variables. And in this case, we start execution on line 13. Line 13 is going to be the print statement, but I can't do any printing until I know what S1 is returning. So that means I have to invoke S1. S1 has a whole bunch of stuff for me to set up, because I have to set up a return info first so that I know where to go back to. I also have to set up the parameter as well as all the local variables. So in this case, the return info is going back to line 13 to finish up with the printing. Then I need one column per parameter, which is n in this case, and also for each local variable I and R. N as a parameter has 2 as the argument, so that means column D starts with a value of 2. Column E and column F are both local variables, so that means they have to start with question marks, because we do not know the value of a local variable. Then we go into the subroutine, starting with line 5. Line 5 changes R to 1. Line 6 changes I to 0. Line 7 is the beginning of a while loop, so we have to evaluate the expression I is less than n, and that is It's true because n has a value of 2, I has a value of 0. We go into line 8. Line 8 is involving the invocation of S1, so we have to invoke S1 again because otherwise I cannot perform the addition. So once again we set up return info, n, I, and r. Return info in this case is returning back to line 8, and the line looks like this: r gets r plus question mark. N is, I use I to pass to n. I has a value of 0 at this point, and therefore column H starts with a value of 0. I, on the other hand, is a local variable. Unknown here. R is an unknown because it's a local variable. Yep.
So local variables carry over into extra invocations?
No, not at all. Okay? These are new instances of the same local variable.
But you have to initiate a local variable for one that's already
Correct.
been initiated?
Yes, local variables, just like parameters, are allocated on a per invocation basis, not a per subroutine basis.
So only after the invocation's been deallocated entirely to those local variables?
Yes, the deallocation will also include the deallocation of local variables.
Okay.
Yep. And once we set up the columns, we go back into the subroutine, starting with line 5. Same old thing. Line 5 is initializing R to 1. But remember which R we're dealing with. Okay, we're not dealing with column F anymore. This time we're dealing with column J. Line 6 is initializing I to 0. And then we go to line 7. Line 7 is asking the question, is I less than n? The answer is true because n... Oh, the answer is no. Sorry. That means we get out of the loop immediately. Go to line 11. Line 11 is returning R. R has a value of 1. So that means we locate the rightmost return info cell, copy and paste it, change the question mark to the value that we are returning, which is my R or column J. So that's 1. And that's the end of it. Then we move on to line 12. Line 12 is the end of the subroutine. We deallocate all the columns that we allocated a little bit earlier. And then we have to use the return info to tell us where to go back to. We go back to line 8. But by the time we go back to line 8, R is getting R plus 1. There are no additional invocations to deal with. Okay? But you have to remember what is the context that we are using to execute line 8. We're using columns C, D, E, F to execute line 8. So that means the R of line 8 is referring to F, column F. Column F has a value of 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And we're going to update R back to the summation, the result of the calculation. So as a result, column F is now updated to a value of 2. Are we doing okay with this? Okay. After line 8, we go to line 9. Line 9 doesn't do anything particularly interesting. It's just adding 1 to I. Then we go back to line 7, because this is a loop. And then we ask the question, I is less than n, is it true or is it false? It's still true because n in this case is 2 and I is 1. So that is still true, which means we have to go in and perform another iteration. We go back to line 8. Line 8, same thing, because we have to invoke first before we can do the calculation. So that means we're going to reallocate columns G, H, I, and J, in this case for the same rows. The local variables always start with a value, unknown value. What is n this time?
1.
N is 1, because I'm using I as an argument to specify the parameter n, and at this point I has a value of 1, and therefore the argument n of column H is going to start with a value of 1. Yep.
Aren't you ending the subroutine after updating R to the R plus the invocation?
Say again?
When you're returning to line 8 and making R equal to 2.
You're talking about row 15 here?
Yeah, and then aren't you ending the subroutine?
No, because this is a loop. This is not our quote-unquote usual subroutine where we have a conditional statement, but because it's a loop, we have to go back to the beginning of the loop to see whether we have to perform another iteration. I just threw a little wrench into the whole thing, because the usual thing to do for me is the conditional statement. In this case, it is not a conditional statement; it is a loop. So that's what you need to do. Is in the test you have to be careful and not make assumptions that it has to be a conditional statement. So when I'm done with one iteration, I'm all done. Yep.
The loop ends right there after going to line 9, you go to line 11.
What?
And then going back to reallocate.
No, well, it's a loop. So, okay, I perform line 9 because line 9 follows line 8. But what do you do at the end of a loop? You go back. It's a while loop, so you have to go back to the while to reevaluate the condition of the while. Right? Sorry?
Oh, would have been wrong.
Well, that's why we have the practice exam, is because I just want to point out all the potential things that I think I can be asking in the actual.
Like the post-checking.
In the post-checking loop, a repeat until.
Yeah, that's where it sounds like he's getting it mixed up.
Oh, okay. But this is not post-checking because you can see that in the construct, the condition appears before the body of the loop. If it's a repeat until loop, then we say repeat here, and then we say until, and then whatever condition. This is a pre-checking loop. We haven't been using a pre-checking loop for a while, and I think that's why we might have forgotten what it is. But it is one of the most used constructs in this class when we talked about arrays particularly. Okay. Return info is going to look exactly like last time because when I go back to line 8, I still have to finish up the calculation of R plus the result of the invocation and then update R after that. And then we go back again to line 5 because the line 5 is the first action line of the subroutine. And in this case, we are reinitializing R to 1. On line 6, we are reinitializing I to 0. I should not really use the word re because this is really the first time that we do anything to this particular R and I local variables. And then we go to line 7 again. Line 7 is saying I is less than n is true because n in this case is 1 and I has a value of 0. 0 is less than 1 is true. We go to line 8. Now this is the deepest we can go in this case in this particular program. On line 8, we are going to do the recursion again, which means we have to set up all the columns again. So that means we have to set up return info, n, I, and R all over again. Return info is still on line 8. That's what we are trying to accomplish is line 8. And line 8 still looks the same way as before, R plus question mark. What about n this time? I'm using I to specify n, and I has a value of 0. That's why n as a parameter also starts with a value of 0. I and R are both local variables, and as a result, they start with unknown values. Okay, are we doing okay so far? Should I slow down, re-explain something? No? Okay. Once we set up all the columns, we go into the subroutine starting on line 5. Line 5, once again, is initializing R to 1. Line 6, initializing I to 0. And line 7 is the beginning of a loop evaluating whether I is less than n. This time it is false because n is 0 as well as I. 0 is less than 0 is false. That means we don't even go into the loop once. We get all the way out to line 11. Line 11 is returning the value of R. R has a value of 1. So that means by the time we get to line 11, we are returning a value of 1. We go to the rightmost return info cell, we copy, we paste,